Hi guys, it's me, Hill Me to all of you. Today is the date is the let's see, I think it says the 17th of July, and we're going to be talking, as I promised you earlier this morning, about my considerations, concerns about what's going on with Yellowstone. I tried to pull up some graphs to give you an idea how big the size is. Before we get started, let's talk about the fact is that Yellowstone is actually is not a single caldera. It's actually is a series of calderas that had grown larger and larger over the years. And I'm going to be showing you this little chart in a little bit, giving you some ideas of the different situations with all they all got started and things like that. But let me just point out to you that this doesn't tell me the years, but I certainly can show you the graph of how it all works. First of all, Yellowstone National Park, when it was created as a national park, I don't think that Theodore Roosevelt really gave it much thought. No, it wasn't Theodore Roosevelt, although it certainly was one of his favorite spots. I think it was a prior president to him in the 1870s. Was taken by its beauty and its unique geysers and things like that. However, they already kind of knew there was obviously a volcano that made it all run, but they didn't really know how big it was until modern science, thanks to seismic abilities and things like that, we got into the point where we could now map the magma chamber. There's actually two. There's a major magma chamber which feeds the whole thing, and it is underneath the crust. There's a layer between the crust and the core that is the thing that kind of acts like kind of insulator, if you will. But it depends on pressure, and the tectonic plates slide on this layer, which is the molten rock. Well, obviously the American continent has been slowly going southwest over quite a few millions of years, and which of course has resulted in the actual magma energy chamber, the one that's in the mantle, to constantly be exposed to new surfaces in the crust, is obviously the mantle's surface is looking for weed spots to get out. Now, as I said, I am not a geologist. I am more into meteorology and climatology. So that's what I'm going to focus on specifically, is the meteorology and climatology events, and go from there. I'm also going to try to answer a few questions that were asked to me on the YouTube video, which I tried to answer them honestly, but maybe some of you may have a hard time quite grasping some of the concepts. So let's start with the three stages of the Yellowstone eruption, from the earliest to the last, or from the oldest to the first. So this is the graph here, and it is your Mount St. Helens in comparison. You can see Mount St. Helens covered mostly a little tiny strip of Washington and Oregon. It didn't really do anything really big deal in 1980, but this thing is much bigger than that. Here in the innermost is the oldest of the supervolcano eruptions. This is called the Mesa Falls ash bed. This is where it all fell, and this is about 2.1 million years ago. This is the oldest one. And then the one that happened about 1.2 million years ago is the Heck, this little thing is called a Huckleberry Ridge ash bed. Okay, see, it's getting bigger. And now the very last one, 640,000 years ago, is called the Lone Creek ash bed, and it's actually caused by a series of supervolcanoes. There's actually three calderas in the Yellowstone supervolcano. I gotta look up here. You can't see it otherwise. Okay, because I keep forgetting that this camera's not set the way I would like it. So this one is the oldest, second oldest, and the newest. They believe that the pending situation is going to be a bit bigger than this. It is going to cover most of the western U.S. with ash cloud, and you can see how big that is. It's quite large. It's enormous. Okay. Now, here's all the East Coast states. You'll see that even in this hypothetical models, it shows that we are going to be spared from the heavy ash clouds, or heavy ash and pyroclastic flows. Let's talk about that. They said within 1,000 miles of the epicenter of the event will be up to volcanic ash up to 10 feet deep. That's 1,000 miles, within the range of 1,000 miles of supervolcano. Now, one of my viewers asked me, well, he said to me, I've heard suggestions that you should build bunkers, and that there should be underground bunkers. But if you got 10 feet of ash on top of your bunker, how are you likely to get out of your bunker? Well, there's a couple different ways to do that. Obviously, depending on how your bunker is designed, you may might actually have an entrance exit on the side of a mountain. For example, think of Cheyenne Mountain, which is actually in Colorado, and that Cheyenne Mountain, for example, was built at the time of the Cold War in about 1962. It was designed specifically to take a direct nuclear strike. To do that, they built the mountain very strongly, and it's reinforced. It has access to a large supply of drinking water, its own electrical service. It also has its own self-contained air system to keep the air filtered and purified, as well as, of course, when the air is clean, they could actually get some of the air from vents located high up in the mountain itself. The problem is that the particulates of volcanic ash, if it gets into moisture and gets into your lung, is worse than cinnamon. And if anybody ever tried that stupid eating a tablespoon of cinnamon thing, you know that cinnamon is hygroscopic and will absorb all the moisture in your mouth, and which literally can choke. Well, in this case, the volcanic ash is also hygroscopic, and it's very fine dust, and once it gets into your lungs, it fills your lungs up, it mixes with the moisture and the mucus in your lungs, and the next thing you know you suffocate. Full of volcanic ash in your nostrils and your lungs and your breathing and everything else. But that very fine ash is only part of the problem. Because Yellowstone is a explosive volcano, it's not like Kilauea in Hawaii, which is fairly tame. It goes just like Mount St. Helens. It goes boom, okay? And it's got pyroclastic flows. It's going to go out there into the, and it's going to take everything out, especially near the epicenter. I would say, given this relative map here, we're talking maybe something about right within the first 100 miles is where you're going to see the issue of the epicenters, where you're going to see the pyroclastic flows. That thing could be a very big issue. But they also now believe that the different volcano systems are all interconnected together, including Mount St. Helens is an adjunct of the Yellowstone supervolcano. They all work as a giant system to, and they're all part of the Ring of Fire. Um, there's about seven supervolcanoes, and there's also one nearby on the east coast, in the Canary Islands, which is at this point is stable. I don't know if it's going to go off in the near future, but all right. So now let's get to the actual. How does the ash cloud going to affect our weather? After all, that is my in my forte. Well, as you know, ash can be very light, and if you have a major enough explosion, the ash will be thrust into the upper atmosphere. They said possibly up to 80 kilometers up, or about 25 miles into the atmosphere. The very fine particulate dust will actually cause the sunlight to be significantly reduced. Not for weeks, not for months, possibly for a year or more, as the ash cloud is just so immense. It's just going to fill up the atmosphere with ash, and that's going to be where, of course, it's going to affect anything that uses photosynthesis, including plants. And yeah, somebody who has solar panels on the roof certainly are not going to be any better off than somebody who's using mains power from the utility company. Because trust me, once your sunlight is not there, your solar panel ain't going to work. That's just the nature of the situation at large. As we go. So maybe we need to ask a question: is what can we do about it? Okay, that's a great question. I think the first thing we need to know is what we're talking about here. Okay. To do that, we can look at several other volcanic eruptions that occurred within, say, let's start with the year without a summer first. I mentioned that briefly. I'm going to cover it again. Mount Pinatubo near Japan had erupted around 1815, actually around 1814. And it is not a super volcano. It's more of a standard sized volcano. And it sent so much ejected into the upper atmosphere that globally it dropped the temperature of the world maybe by about 2 degrees Celsius. Now, I know what you're going to say, big deal. Well, depends on where you are in the world. Obviously, it got into the northern climates, and it actually caused a more significant drop than that. At the time of the year without a summer, the year was already suffering. Crops were already having a hard time after Pinatubo had popped its cork. But during the peak of the summertime, when it's normally warm and pleasant, the temperatures were just not getting there. It was too cold, way too cold. There's the old expression something like 1815 and froze to death. So it gives you an idea how much of a couple temperature differences, and that was a small volcano that had caused that. Mount St. Helens also had some impact as well on the weather in 1980. It certainly did cause maybe not quite as much effect, but it certainly did lower the temperature of the Earth. Even Eyjafjallajökull in Iceland had a strong effect on the climate change. Not quite as much in our area, but it certainly, the ejecta from Eyjafjallajökull had caused the upper temperatures to drop somewhat, especially around Iceland and Western Europe. It certainly also affected, of course, transportation by plane, is airliners could not run their jet engines in volcanic ash for the same reason why you can't breathe volcanic ash, which is it gets into the engines and it ruins the engines, and then of course the planes can't breathe, and then they stall and they fall, and then of course they go crash, and so that's the reason why Obviously, they had to ground all those planes at the time of Angel had fired off. It's same thing happened also in 1980 with in the more local area with Mount St. Helens. It also had to basically ground air flights around the area. Now, so if Mount Pinatubo did that near Japan in 1814, 1815, let's talk about another one in the Dutch West Indies. Let's talk about the big bad boy we all hear about, Krakatoa. Krakatoa is more of what you're going to see with Yellowstone in the sense of the sheer magnitude of power. And that, again, is not a supervolcano. The sun of Krakatoa is also not a supervolcano. But the amount of force of the explosion just gives you something to appreciate just how, even if it is on a minor scale, how big it is. The explosion from Krakatoa was loud enough to be heard around the world. And that, my friends, is a feat of engineering in its own right. Obviously, Yellowstone supervolcano is not going to want to be no second fiddle for anybody. So when it goes, it's going to be heard definitely around the world. It's kind of almost like Yosemite Sam and the Bugs Bunny commercial.
I speak softly, but I carry a big stick! Oh yeah? Well, I speak loud, and I carry a bigger stick, and I use it too!
Is that for the sake of argument, is that this thing is going to make sure you don't neglect it and don't deny its existence. Absolutely. Now, obviously, here in the New England area, we're not going to see the actual ash beds like you see in the map here. What you're going to see is the very fine dust, okay? It's a very fine particulate, because usually the winds always go from west to east, almost always, okay? So you're going to, depending on how the winds are blowing that day, we're going to see a very fine filmy ash on things, okay? It was just like what happened in the Great Dust Bowl in the 20s, which is in this area here. The dust did come east. It did come to New York. It did come to Connecticut. Although when we got it, it was just a fine, filmy nuisance. But you could certainly see how it was causing our sky to go red, for the very fine particulate was making it hard to see things. If you look at the pictures from the Great Dust Bowl issues we're talking about for the city of New York, you'd see there was a red haze over this area, in this New England area here, in New York, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. So that just tells you something, that even Connecticut is not going to be spared, because the dust, of course, is going to affect our lives as well. But obviously, when you get that much particulate ash, dust, and everything else, it means that crops are not going to grow, as I mentioned. Well, of course, we have modern technology. You know, I hate to sound like something from the $6 Million Man by Steve Austin, but the truth is we do have modern technology. We can work around this, right? Yes, to a point. However, subterranean greenhouses are not exactly very common, because a regular standard greenhouse, when you potentially could have up to 10 feet of volcanic pumice and ash sitting on the roof, it's very dense stuff. It puts a lot of load on the roof beams. Think of what happened in Pompeii. The buildings, the roofs came down. The people in Pompeii, of course, did not know anything about, or could not have gotten a shovel and got on the roof and shoveled it off, because Mount Etna was not going to give them that opportunity. But clearly, That's going to be a big problem with the ash and the ash cloud. Is this is going to be so much dense, especially now, because look where our breadbasket is. Just to show this here, it's the strip of land pretty much from North Dakota, South Dakota, okay, Montana, okay, all these area here is pretty much our or breadbasket area. Wisconsin, all this here. And so when this also happens to be right where the significance of the ash bed is too. So that means that our entire breadbasket of our country is going to be forever affected by that. So that's an issue. Making sure we have modern technology. Yes, we can grow crops. Yes, we can have greenhouses. Yes, we can probably build them inside of subterranean mountains. But is there going to be enough food to feed everybody? No. Is it going to be... Where are we going to put all the people that are being displaced by this monstrosity? Well, let me give you an example. Where are we putting all the refugees from foreign countries? From the South America and Central America. We can't even figure out what to do with all of them either. Even though they're not really desired refugees. It just shows us that the Department of Homeland Security is ill prepared to deal with such a mass crisis. And it's not going to get any better just because you think that our government says, oh, we'll save your ass. I don't think so. I mean, they can't even deal with it now. So, I mean, I think we need to exercise great care and preparation to make sure that our needs are provided for. And that's what this whole video is about. Is I'm trying to do is to educate you, the population, onto the events of the world as best I can. And that's not always easy to do. I never intended to get into too much detail on the supervolcano business, but obviously you guys found the topic quite alluring. I'm just checking something on my phone here real quick here. I'm going to give you an update on the videos as well. You guys found the videos quite alluring and you wanted to know more about what was going on, and for that reason I could tell that because somebody just asked a question right here on the phone. I'm going to read it to you right here and answer it right here in person. So let's go right to the question here, and then we'll take it from there. The individual asks, let's go to his comments here. Let's see if he'll show it to me. I had some problems earlier with my phone, thinking it's going to step with spam. You realize that 100 views doesn't mean your video went viral, right? Well, honestly, Ryan Carey, I'll explain it to you right now. 100 views may not mean my video is going viral to you, but for a person who normally sees a viewership in a single day of a video about 5 to 10, 100 is a pretty big difference. That's tenfold increase. So, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, relatively speaking, as far as I'm concerned, my video has reached a viral status, given my normal viewership on my videos. Okay, so, that's just the way I see it. Sure, it's relative, but then everything else is relative. Just like, for example, Mount St. Helens is relative to the last reaction of the Lake Creek ash bed of about 640 million years ago. Okay? I mean, that's relative. That was bad. This is going to be worse, right? Well, so if this is my account here of videos, is what you see in Mount St. Helens, and this is what you consider viral, okay, for the, that's true, okay? But for me, as far as productions and trying to reach out to the population, if I got 100 people viewing a video, I think that's indeed is a good start for my video work, and I'm still working on that, by the way. Now, See, obviously, because our government is not going to be able to provide for us all, we're going to need to find out another way to making sure that our needs are met somehow. Because our government cannot provide the resources, the food, and all the other essentials to keep people alive and breathing at this point. Because it just doesn't have the abilities, as I said earlier, with DHS and ICE is running into problem with these illegal refugees. We don't know what to do with them. We don't know what to do with those children. There's just so many children coming across, and we can't find a way to feed and clothing and housing them and educate them. And that's not even a disaster. I mean, so this is something where DHS could easily work very carefully to try to organize it better. But when this thing happens, when this thing finally pops its cork, whenever that's going to be, the USGS always is trying to say is, we don't know when, we don't know when, we don't know when. Because we don't really know. I mean, we're getting better scientifically speaking, but because they're not able to tell us more specifically what is going to happen or when it's going to happen, we can tell you what could happen. That's what these projections are based on, is what could happen. It's not necessarily we can't tell you when specifically. We're not that good yet. So I mean, the most obvious thing is if you're in the northeast of the United States, I would say you might see a bit of an issue with the very fine ash particulates. Putting a very heavy haze over the sun area, and that might very well cut the illumination from the sun by significant factors. The temperatures will drop because there won't be as much solar warmth getting through, which obviously could result in crops not being able to be grown, at least in our areas of the East Coast. We probably would be able to continue to grow some crops, but we're going to have to definitely need some assistance in the form of artificial lighting and very careful crop planting. But in the West Coast, you guys are truly, truly, truly fucked. I'm serious. Now, obviously, we could easily see another year without a summer. And, however, in 1815, we did not have the technology that we have today. We did not have access to the railroad. We did not have the trucking system. We did not have the interstate highways. We did not have fuel such as natural gas, heating oil, gasoline, propane being distributed by pipelines throughout the country. We did not have large grocery stores providing food being imported from different countries into our country. We didn't have central heating. We did not have mass communications like we do today, such as radio, television, telephone, cell phones, computers, internet. So we have a couple of new technologies in our quiver that in 1815 did not exist. That may make it a little bit easier to hold it out and to provide some normalcy in the life of the people. But I think the biggest thing that's going to be a problem is the people. I think that's why the USGS had been squelching information, was because they're afraid of the people themselves may freak out. And I can tell you right now, it makes sense, because even when we had the polar vortex, people were freaking out as well. For example, the prices of propane heating oil had gone through the roof, and the price of electricity also went through the roof. And people were ill prepared for the polar vortex. The situation with this could cause another situation, or even nationwide. It's going to be another a year without a summer, but might be bigger than the original year without a summer, which mostly affected the New England states and some of the north states in the northern climates of the United States and Canada. So that's a big thing to consider. But it's just the way it is. you know. So, are we likely to hear Yellowstone when it finally blows its cork? Yeah, I think we'll hear it. I think we'll hear the big boom. I think we'll definitely hear it, even in New England. I think it's going to be loud enough and quite dramatic that not only are you going to hear it on with your ears, more than likely, but you're also going to certainly hear about it on the news, on the internet, on the radio, on social websites, and everything else. And obviously, there's going to be a severe issue for rescue crews because once the ash cloud gets into the atmosphere, they're not going to be able to use planes or helicopters to get people out of there. They're going to have to find some other way of ground transportation to move people, but they would have to move very quickly because they would have to deal with the pyroclastic flows and, of course, the falling ash debris. Could certainly snarl up, say, the railroads and the highways. So those are issues that clearly would have to be addressed. Mount St. Helens, I think, gave some of our people an idea of what to deal with. But, again, I don't know how well the Department of Homeland Security has been practicing since the days of Mount St. Helens situation to figure out the best way to get people in and out of your environment. So, anyway, that's that news, and I'm going to try to keep you abreast when I get the information up to date, and I will do everything I can to make sure you want you to be safe. I want you to be safe, okay? I want you to be aware. I want you to be alive. I want you to know that I really do love you as a people, and I want to help you as best I can. I may be the North American snow queen, but I am not a person who is a butcher, and I have no desire to see anyone suffer. If you can get out of harm's way, I would much prefer that you make an honest effort on your own behalf to get out of harm's way and stay out of harm's way. Don't try to act like it's not going to happen. And like the USGS had been trying to say, people is don't worry about it, everything's going to be fine. Evidence from Russian Geological Service as well as from other satellite mapping sites have said, no, this is something we need to watch out for, and we need to prepare as best we can to make sure we're out of harm's way. Even if that means ahead of time is obviously get away from Yellowstone. Don't go towards it. Get away from it. Go east, my young man. Go east. Okay? Don't go west. If you go west, if you really got to go west, if you really think you're going to be better off going west, I would definitely go down to maybe Baja, California. But even then, from looking at this map, I would say even Baja, California is not going to be really much better, okay? Because that would be about right here. Is you still would see some of the ash cloud that's pretty big. So ideally, the safest place to be would be on this side over here, where you got your Louisiana, lower Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee. And you got a couple of states here. I don't really remember all the states are here, but some of the mid-Atlantic states, of course, all these guys here would be safe. But anybody else is going to be affected. The further west you go, it's the more severe it's going to be. If you are in Maine or Nova Scotia, you're going to be fine, but that's pretty far out. I mean, I don't know what your plans are for the future. So anyway, that takes care of that. And as I said, I'd like you to keep me abreast of your feelings about this. So don't forget to like or dislike the video. Maybe you don't like how it's addressed. Maybe you thought that the video was too saccharine and you just don't like the way it was being proposed. Share it with your friends and your family and your enemies. I'm insisting you share it with your enemies. Give them a fighting chance, okay? Please. And subscribe if you have not done so. Because if you subscribe to the channel, you can at least get an idea of what's going on and how to be protecting of your family and your friends. And I'll try to keep you abreast of information as I can. Sorry, Lemmy didn't really do much of a talk here right now. It kind of became more of my video. I don't really particularly have a problem with that. I really don't. I think you did a good job. And I would like to, again, like I said, people, as I also want to thank the 8 subscribers on my channel, too. For those of you who do not know about my channel, I have my own channel, and it has a tiny URL. Machine, would you mind? No. It's http://www.tinyurl.com/LUMIFINISTRA. Enter, look at my video work that I've done pretty much by myself. I've done a few with Michelle. And please do subscribe to the channel so that I can... I'd like to see my viewership go up to 10. Michelle would like to see her viewership go up to 60 from 54 viewers. Yes. Okay. So for now, stay safe, stay secure. Okay? Semper Fi. Carry on.